This time it's for real. No, really, we're going to start now. You all look so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning. I am quite impressed. I expected to see a bunch of tired folks dragging into the dining hall this morning, but that was not the case. I have one crawler over here, sorry. But seriously, thank you for being here on time and being ready to go. I can already feel the energy in the room. It's a great way to start the day. We have a lot to do today, so we're going to get right to it. I'm not even going to ask the question of how everyone slept because I know it runs the gamut from really good to what is sleep. So we're going to make sure that we work extra time today so that you're really, really tired by the time it's bedtime tonight. Yeah. So, logistic pieces. A quick run through of today's schedule. We're going to do a brief introduction here this morning. ROC Association will have a information panel this morning until about 9:45. We'll then have a 15-minute transition over to the academic building, which is the building right next door. It's kind of behind me from here. We will be in class there from 10 to 11:45, back up here for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we're back at the academic building for afternoon sessions. You'll notice on your agendas that 2 of those sessions run for double blocks, and then there's 2 separate sessions that run shorter blocks. They all end at 4:45 this afternoon. And then we have free time from 5:45 until 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, we'll be back in this room this evening for night's activities. I think you're going to find tonight a really enjoyable evening. We have a couple of very, very special guests that will be joining us this evening for the festivities that will, I think, enlighten many of you in terms of the history of this and the current state of this movement, if you will, of resident ownership. So it should be quite an interesting evening. Looking forward to it. So that is the day in a nutshell. Does anyone have any quick questions about that agenda? Seeing none then, thank you. Let's see, we've got one change this morning of a workshop location. This is for the 1 o'clock session this afternoon for Keep Cool, Get Results. That's emotional intelligence and conflict resolution. It's a really simple change. That was scheduled for room 106. You're just going to go right past room 106 and go into the next room. It's 105B as in boy. So it's the room right next to the one you're in, and we have re-signed it down there, and Kelly will be down there and staff to make sure you get to the right place. So that's the only minor change we have. Everybody okay with that? Did you get that? Okay. Okay. So I saw the My ROC USA line forming. Money talks, doesn't it, huh? Everybody wants to get in that raffle, so I saw at least 15 or 20 people over in the line this morning making Melissa work really early in the morning. We like watching Melissa work, so please make sure you keep that line going when we come down here for meals. And she'll be there along with staff to help folks sign up or re-sign up with myrocusa.org. Also, a couple of other things. Heather Westy, are you in this room, Heather? Hi, Heather. You're right there. So can you just stand up and wave so folks know who you are? Heather will also be out there during meal times to talk about website development. If you have not got a marketing website up and running, then you should stop by and have a conversation with Heather about how she and the team can help you get up and running on a website. So make note of that. Also, at noontime today, we will have a series of vendors here. They are cooperative vendors. We very much support cooperative movement and supporting other cooperatives. As many of you may know, it's one of the 7 cooperative principles that are typically located at the back of your bylaws that you may have seen. Cooperatives supporting cooperatives. So we will have several vendors here. Cabot Cheese will be here. Innovia will be here, and Co-ops for a Better World will be here. Many of them usually have lots of tchotchke and stuff that you can, grab some goodies. I encourage you when you come in for lunch to stop and talk to some of the vendors, see what they have to offer, pick their brain and talk with them a little bit. And if you walk away with some goodies, more power to you. Great. So keep that in mind for lunchtime. Okay. And the other thing we want to do this morning is we had a wonderful, wonderful event at the beginning of last month. Our president, Paul Bradley, was inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame that most of you know about. I know Paul appreciates the accolades, but he's always the first one to put the credit out to you all. So I don't mean to put him on the spot and embarrass him, but because the point is what was unveiled at that time was a really cool video that the National Cooperative Bank had invested time and resources in to put together about this work. And it's really not about Paul. It's about the work, and it's about the movement that's happening with resident ownership. And the National Cooperative Bank really did a wonderful job. And we were at their annual meeting actually in Washington, D.C. as part of the celebration for Paul and the other inductees. And we had a wonderful night, and we rolled out this video. And we'd like to just kick off the morning here this morning by taking about 7.5 minutes of your day and sharing this video with you. And Spencer, I was supposed to give you the cue before I went there, but there's my cue, buddy. And so please sit back and enjoy this 7.5 minute video. I'm sure many of you can relate.
Hi, my name is Paul Bradley, and I'm the president of ROC USA. ROC USA's reason for being is to help homeowners gain security of the land under their homes. As renters of the land, homeowners face 3 basic risks: excessive rent increases, poor quality infrastructure, and the biggest risk of all, community closure, where homeowners are displaced. So since 1984, homeowners have been organizing co-ops and purchasing their communities and becoming resident-owned communities.
This is the gateway to Glacier National Park in northern Montana. Nearby is the booming town of Kalispell, and inside it is this resident-owned community.
This is Green Acres Cooperative. I've lived here for 8 years, and I just really enjoy living here. So in 2008, I got a call one evening, and my husband had collapsed at our home in a cardiac arrest. We eventually lost our home and ended up at Green Acres. It's affordable. It can't be sold out from underneath me, and my family is safe and secure here.
In the Flathead Valley, our rents have really skyrocketed in the last 5 years or so. So living in a manufactured home community, you are a homeowner, you have that pride of ownership, and if you're in a resident-owned cooperative, you have the pride of ownership in your entire community.
One of the inherent challenges in manufactured home communities or mobile home parks is people have 50 and 60-year-old images of what manufactured housing, or at the time, trailers, represent. And the fact of the matter is that the product, the homes, have evolved tremendously.
Society itself really judges mobile homes, parks, and owners of mobile homes. And we experienced that ourselves when we were purchasing our home. We were going to throw a housewarming party. And I had friends say, why would you throw a housewarming party when you're just buying a trailer? But once people come into the community and they come into our house, they just fall in love with it. Come on in, let me show you my house. This is our master room. And in here is our master bath. My husband did the mosaic around the tub for me. And this is our living room and kitchen, and I love how open it is. When you're a renter, whether it be a park or a home, there's always that chance that that could be taken away from you. And when you own your own place and you are part of the co-op, you don't have to worry about that happening.
Homeowners that get together in a co-op really face three basic barriers to becoming a resident-owned community. First is just the opportunity itself that community owners provide to homeowners to go through the process of acquiring the property.
Well, if somebody asked me about selling to the community like I did, I would highly recommend it. I mean, it gives me a good feeling that I was able to help in some way.
Two is access to the training and education and the technical assistance, both pre-purchase as well as post-purchase.
When working with new potential communities or communities that are up for sale, we visit with the community members and let them know what the plus sides of becoming a cooperative are.
One of the key assets that ROC USA provides to homeowners in communities, of course, is access to capital. We help low and moderate income homeowners act like deep-pocketed investors. In order for us to do that, we really have to be aligned with larger institutional lenders. The National Co-op Bank and MetLife represent that to ROC USA Capital. We're here today in Taunton, Massachusetts at Colonial Estates and Oak Hill. Both of these communities were financed by ROC USA Capital in partnership with the National Co-op Bank and MetLife to deliver really competitive financing to help make both purchases possible.
I moved in here in 2012, and then 2 years later, I retired. A month after that, they told us that the park was going to be sold, and I, really, no. So I went and Googled, how do you buy a mobile home park? And up comes ROC USA. And they helped us purchase the park for $37 more. We could actually own and run our own park. We're here today to tell you about our park and how happy we are since we've purchased it.
I feel like, we own the land and the property ourselves. And this way here, I don't feel, like it can be taken away from us.
The best thing about living in a co-op is that my finances are easily more manageable here.
I've lived here for 36 years, and for the past 2 years that we own this place, I know the people, and I'm on a committee, so that makes me feel like part of them.
We've gotten to know each other better. We've gotten to know each other's names, and it's just, it feels more like a family than just, some neighbor down the street.
Once the homeowners have purchased the community, their long-term interest is in the affordability and in the quality of the community.
We found a home here located at Colonial Estates. And when we investigated looking into it, we found out that the community was up for sale and it was going to be a resident-owned community. The residents, they were afraid, and the community voted against that process. And then 3 years down the line, the opportunity came again. And they did make the decision to purchase the community.
I think it was a very good move. We have control of what goes on, the people that live here, because we own the place.
Being resident-owned, it's run democratically, and that means that everyone here makes their own decisions together on what they want to do in the community.
We don't have to go to an owner that's thousands of miles away to get permission to do something.
All in favor? There's no need as a resident-owned community to make a profit. All we have to do is pay our bills. We have not had to increase our rent since we purchased the community. But we did make decisions that instead of putting Band-Aids on things where a large corporation would have done, is that we are actually repairing them properly. Colonial Estates as a community really is a community. People have taken pride in their homes. People have taken pride that they've actually purchased the properties.
We own the place. We're secure, we're safe, we're not going anywhere, and that's the nice part about it.
So the co-op model works so beautifully for this particular situation.
If someone were to ask me about becoming a co-op and if they were considering it, I would say do it.
The land under our homes cannot be sold out from underneath of us. That's extremely devastating to people. I've seen it happen.
And this gives people the opportunity to really have it all, affordability and home ownership.
Homeowners everywhere want the same basic thing. They want a decent community that's safe and secure and affordable. And when homeowners have the opportunity, we have proven time and again that we can provide the access to the resources, the training and education, and the financing to make that possible.
So just one note about language that we use before we move over, because I'm an old communications major and I can't resist. I love Lori Westendorf's comment about the comment her friend made about why is she throwing a housewarming party when she's buying a trailer. We don't use the word trailer where I work. And I'll tell you, I've been into a lot of mobile homes in this work, and I've never been into a trailer. And I suspect if I were to show up on your doorstep, you would say, Gary, welcome to my home. You would not say, Gary, welcome to my trailer. It's a little thing, but that's how change starts, when we make little adjustments. So I'm going to put out there publicly for all of us to consider from this moment forward. Catch yourself, because we all do it sometimes. Catch yourself when you start talking about your home in terms of being a trailer. It's your home. It's everyone's home. So I think, as an old communications major, that on the ground level, when we start to change those little language pieces that we use, then perception starts to change. And we can be the catalyst for that change to start. So I encourage everyone in this room to do the same thing with your communities and with your friends. Talk about your homes, not your trailers. Thanks. So I'd like to invite to the stage Paul and our ROC Association for our opening plenary panel. Paul and crew. Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, everyone. So it is a real pleasure to present to you the three nationally elected ROC Association directors. Starting on my immediate left here is Lori Cahill from Green Acres Cooperative, who you saw in the video, representing all of you very well. Lori represents the Mountain West region, and in the middle, the well-known and well-loved Natividad Seefeld from Park Plaza Cooperative in friendly Fridley, Minnesota. And to my far left, Kim Capon, the longtime, now second time around president of the Medville Cooperative, which is a stone throw from Southern New Hampshire University. A real gentleman, Kim Capon. And Kim represents the New England region. So the ROC Association was formed in 2013 as a clear exhibition, clear demonstration of our values, which is to say that ROC leaders, you, really need a voice at the highest levels of this organization, and that ROC leaders need insight into all of the workings of ROC USA, if we can credibly stand with you and represent you and help move this to a much higher level, to many more communities, to many more homeowners, and ultimately to every state in the great United States. And so we started in 2013, and no doubt for some of you, you received notices of this and invitation for nominations, which happen by individual boards of directors who nominate any member of your community to serve that region. Once nominated and approved by your board of directors, they go on to the ballot for that region, and your boards then in turn receive a ballot with information about each director. You receive an invitation to join a conference call to meet said director nominees, and then you vote as a board of directors for nominees. We have had in numerous regions over the last 5 years competitive races for the ROC Association directors. And that is tremendous news. When we first did this, we heard things such as, Paul, seriously, People are serving their communities. They're working sometimes on a state level. How possibly are you going to find people who are willing to serve on a national level, to come to Washington, D.C. 3 times a year or other venues around the country and serve on a national board of directors? Well, it is really great that we've never had a race that didn't have a nominee, and that we've had such outstanding leadership across those 5 years, and it's only building and growing. So that is really a commendation to people's motivation to really help drive this in a direction that you want to see it go in. So congratulations to all of you for that motivation. So along those lines, it's a big step, nonetheless, to step up and serve on a national board. So to start off the panel, I'm going to ask Lori. Lori, so you have a personal experience in your stepping up and stepping out to serve in this role. So could you share with your peers how it is you came to the ROC Association and ROC USA Board of Directors? What was the decision-making process? How did that all come together for you?
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Of the 3 of us, I'm the baby in the family. And I'll say family because, first off, I can't say enough how welcomed that I've felt as a director on ROC Association. We sit in quite a few meetings with the ROC USA board. I have never sat in a meeting and felt like what I had to say wasn't as important as an investor or a CEO in the room. I've always been very welcomed, taken care of, and supported. And the people are very down to earth. They listen, and your guys' needs are very important to them, extremely important. And that's just a really good feeling. In the past, well, let me start with this. When I was in Ohio, at one of the CLIs, they had announced that they had formed the ROC Association, and they told us what it was about and everything. Well, we went on a paddle wheel dinner cruise, and on that dinner cruise, we had an exercise where we threw a yarn ball in a circle, one to another, and you were supposed to say where you saw yourself in 3 years. So I'm sitting there thinking in the circle, and the yarn ball came to me, and I said, I will be a ROC Association director in 3 years. Well, in 3 years' time, lucky enough, I was voted in to be a ROC Association director. And it has been, it's where I found my passion. You know, we work all year identifying, the needs of all of your communities, and then being your voice to ROC USA. And nothing gives me more pleasure than to try and improve your resources, meet your needs and things like that. I suspect that all of you hold, most important that, in your communities, that's where your families live, that's where you raise your kids, or you plan to stay for the rest of your life. And nothing gives me more joy than to try and make that an easier road for you. We have been going to a program called Excellence in Governance for the past 2 years. We're just about to graduate. And yeah, thank you. It's been a wonderful program. It has taken all 3 of us, I'm sure they can agree, to a whole new level. It's brought me personally out of my shell. I was pretty shy, and I didn't ever exercise my potential whatsoever because I was always too afraid to. But it's brought me out of my shell. You can't help but not. You meet a lot of people, talk to a lot of people, and you're out there a lot. So, but it's wonderful, and they've all been wonderful experiences. I encourage all of you to think if this is a passion for you and you want to make a difference like that, I really encourage you to run. It's so important. We need fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, and to show your communities that you support everyone in this movement. Okay? I really encourage you to really think about that and what you can bring to the table. And that's about it. I mean, it's just been, like I said, that's where my passion is, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. I realize I'm blocking folks off, so I'm just going to pull back here. So thank you, Lori. And that is, there are many ways to participate in that. Those of you, how many people came to Los Angeles to the Community Leadership Institute last year? Alice, Carol, great, Tina. So you participated in a strategic planning process there, and we're complete with the strategic plan, and it'll be published here shortly. We got a little tied up getting ready for the ROC Leadership Institute, but it'll be presented to all of you very shortly, and you will see your ideas reflected in it, and you see some of those ideas reflected already. The first strategic objective in our plan is to raise up ROC leader voice, which means we're doubling down on this idea of engaging you in the direction and how this gets built and how we go and continue to grow. So very important. Thank you, Lori. So part of that growth, part of that development as a national network is advocacy. And really there's no one better on this stage to talk about advocacy as a co-op leader than Natividad Seafeld. So Natividad, you've really stepped up on a state level in your advocacy for co-ops and for homeowners generally in communities. Can you just describe for us an example of something you've accomplished in partnership with North Country Cooperative Foundation and others to advance the cause in Minnesota?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is fabulous. Right now, one of the biggest things that we really want is to get our rent credits back. And in Minnesota, when you're a renter, you are allowed a rent credit once a year. And as soon as we became a co-op, that became a big fat zero. So we don't get that anymore. So since then, we've been advocating to change the bill that is currently in the state and get some of the wording changes so that co-ops are also included in that. And it's been a long couple of years doing that. So we finally invited Senator Roger Chamberlain and Senator Carolyn Lane. Roger Chamberlain is a Republican and Carolyn Lane is a Democrat. And we asked them to come to our community so we could talk about the final stages of the bill, of which Roger Chamberlain is the writer. And so I spent an entire day on a motorcycle ride calling back and forth to Roger Chamberlain to where we finally connected for a 1-hour conversation at one of the biggest biker spots in Minnesota called the Naughty Hog of all things. So we talked along about this rent credit that we really wanted, and he said, I'd like to meet you someday. So we invited them, and they came and sat in our tiny little office along with Bonnie, our on-site manager, and whoever else was in the room. North Country Foundation was there, quite a few of the people. And we talked about it, and Roger Chamberlain said, why are we doing this? Why is this happening? We have to make this work. He said, this bill will pass. So we thought it was going to pass, and guess what? Our governor vetoed our tax bill, which happened to be everything that was in the tax bill. So we are not getting our rent credit this year. But that didn't stop us. We found out on a Saturday that this was going to possibly be vetoed. We called his office, and then I went to another resident who loves to call everybody's office and said, please call his office nonstop. And we called nonstop for days, but it still got vetoed. But that's not going to stop us. We'll go back, and we will continue to make this work. I also spent a day on the Capitol lobbying for a infrastructure bill for $5 million to be held in the government for upcoming possible sales and purchases. So if you needed infrastructure money, that would be available. We spent 15 minutes in each what you would call a round table with each senator, and every single one of them put their name on the bill. And the biggest accomplishment was that and getting a Democrat and a Republican in the same room to say yes.
That's my favorite part of the story, is having a Democratic and Republican senator in the Park Plaza office, which some of us know is a corner of a utility building, concrete floor, metal building, and squeezed in there at that, and to have them shake hands and say they're going to get this done. That's the power you all have, actually. That's the power you have. Bipartisan, we can bring back bipartisan.
Yeah, don't be afraid to call or go to their office or go to the Capitol. Just go there. It's you. You are who make this happen. And a lot of us don't even realize that we're important and we matter because you think your voice doesn't matter and your vote doesn't matter. It matters if you continue to do that.
It really does. It really does. Thank you, Nativi Dodd. Kim, I wanted to shift gears. We heard a lot last night from folks around membership engagement and participation. Some of you have signed up to go to the Medville site visit. As I said, a stone throw away, but a lovely community with some tremendous volunteerism, as we heard a little bit about last night. But I'd love for you to just, for the entire group, because not everyone can get over to Medville tomorrow, how do you think about creating an environment of volunteerism, of participation in the co-op?
Welcome, everyone. Volunteerism, well, you heard from Karen last evening, suggests that we have about 125 volunteers and we don't think it's enough. And that's actually true. Creating an environment for volunteerism it has to be intentional. We take it very seriously in absolutely everything that we do. Everything that we do, the message behind it the idea behind it is to get volunteers. We preach volunteerism when we're vetting people for membership. Almost everybody comes into our community, probably makes it to be a member because they fit the two criteria, financial and criminal background. But, and we don't have any rule that says you have to volunteer a certain number of hours or anything like that. What we do is impress upon people, if you moving to this community because you think it's a nice community and we do a lot here, it's because of everyone here has a part in that. Everyone here should have a part in that. We don't mandate volunteerism, but we have an expectation that everyone would contribute in some way. So I think the attitude has to start with what is the atmosphere in your community. I always look at it this way. If I can't say hello and have a great day or a good morning and been sincere about it to the biggest jerk in the community, then I haven't done my job. That's setting the example, that's setting the atmosphere. It has to start there, which is to say that we want you, we like you, we want you to be part of this community. So I think it starts there. The day that they become a member, that they voted in as a member, they understand there's an expectation there. We put a great deal of emphasis on community activities. Our board mandates that our events committee does one event every month that is free to the community. Now, we have to raise money to do that, but we are intentional about a budget that is dedicated to events. It used to be like $3,500. We're so successful they reduced it to $1,500, and we're about to tell them we don't even need that, because we do a lot of things. In the summertime, it's much easier. You can hold event picnics. We do a lot of food events that bring community together that we charge for, but it's a fraction of what you'd pay to go out to a restaurant. So we're able to make a little money there. So we are self-funding, and we actually do about 25 events a year. A dozen that our people pay to go to, which is mainly surrounded around food, because that's who I am. I love to cook, I love to eat, and so I'm the local chef. But in any case, it's creating an atmosphere that people feel like it's a community. There's always something to go to. When I talk about we have 25 events, we also have cribbage clubs, two that every week meet and they play cribbage. We have domino club. We have bingo once a week. So it's just encouraging people to you want activities, sponsor them, do them. In any case, so I think that the other part of that is that you have to have a good channel of communications. We do email blast, we do a newsletter, we knock on doors, we deliver door-to-door newsletters. So we have ambassadors that talk to people on at least once a month basis. So there's always a communication tool going, some way of communicating to folks about what's going on in the community. Another thing that we do, which is intentional about getting volunteers, is that we have a board meeting once a month, and we invite the general membership to go to that. But the best meeting that we have that I started about 8 years ago. It's called Coffee House, and it's the Saturday morning before the board meeting, and we go through the agenda with membership. They come, we make coffee, I'll bring muffins or someone will bring something else, and we'll have a general discussion about what's going on in the community. The biggest reason for that was to eliminate rumors. No subject is not tackled. Whatever somebody wants to bring to the table, we talk about it. We talk about what's going on at the board meeting so they understand and they have an opportunity to talk about, give their input, and we also give them an opportunity to say what's on their mind, or I heard this was going on, and so we get an opportunity as board members to dispel that. So as I said, the biggest thing is be intentional about everything that you do in the community, because behind it should be find an opportunity to create an atmosphere that would say, I want to help out, I want to be part of this community, so I'm going to have to volunteer.
That's great. Yeah. And I love that piece about the coffee house and discussing what's coming up on the board agenda. There's a transparency piece to that that's vitally important to creating an organization that people have trust in. There's obviously some confidential personal issues that you deal with, that we all deal with as organization leaders, but there's also really important to determine right up front that you're going to be a transparent and trustworthy organization, and that's a key piece of that. Yeah. There is going to be an opportunity for Q&A at the end. I should have mentioned this up front. So once we go through a second round of questions, we should have 15 to 20 minutes for question and answer. So hold on to your questions, and we'll be right back to you, okay? But I did want to get through the panel. So part of transparency, too, is not just talking about the past, but it's also talking about the future. So there's an emerging idea that the association directors have been talking about. So Lori, I wanted to ask you, because you've been very passionate about this, and we heard last night from Rick that you have a home you're losing due to black mold, probably a story that others in this room have. So you can't hear me. You can't hear me? My goodness gracious. That's highly unusual. Lori, can you talk about some of the discussions we've been having about home improvements?
Sure. So last year in LA at the CLI, we got to talk a lot about the problems that we're having, and one of the big deals was people who are in homes that are unsafe, and they simply cannot afford to make them safe, or, worst case scenario, as Paul mentioned, someone in our community turned up with black mold in their home. They ended up having to walk away from the home. So with that in mind, a gentleman on a call the next month said to me, I have a lady in our community who is living in an unsafe home, and he said, I wish I could do something. There must be something we can do. So that clicked in my mind, and I thought, we are 200 plus strong communities. Why can't we help each other? So I did some more thinking, and I thought, what about if we talked about committing to a grant program and each community donating towards that grant program to help each other. There's a lot of talk to be done about it, and there's going to be a lab on Saturday from 1:15 to 3. I don't know. There's 18 people signed up, but it's going to go into this program a lot deeper, and we're going to talk more about it. But I just wanted to touch on that and have you guys thinking about that and what questions you might have about a program like that and other ideas, how you think your community might respond to that. Right now we have grants, which we'll be making decisions on in next week, okay? And those are primarily for the community's betterment. These would be for individual. Also, they would be like home replacement and or improvements such as windows, roofs, things like that. I know in my community we have found that there are people who simply can't afford to even put new steps on their front. They just can't do it. And I think that we can do this together. We can do better. So it's something to think about, and hopefully we'll all be able to talk about it. And if you see me, around the dorm and stuff, talk to me about it. I would love to talk about it. So that pretty much wraps up that.
Yeah, so great. And we will get much more into that from a planning, what are the challenges, but what's the opportunity as well tomorrow afternoon. So look forward to that, Lori. And on this score, again, TV Dot, on the advocacy front, when it comes to resources, you've actually done some advocating as well for community resources. So talk about one of those forays of yours in the great state of Minnesota.
We're always looking for stuff for free, because that's what we do. That's what we should all do, is try and find ways to connect. So we have partnered with Anoka County for a lot of resources. They actually have a little booklet that we can get. We asked for some to be on site. And in that booklet is every kind of resource you could imagine for anybody, including seniors, children. Also with Head Start programs that are for free. They come right to our community and pick the kids up and bring them home. APAC, All Parks Alliance for Change, they actually held their annual meeting. So if you have any types of entities that work for communities such as ours, and they need a place to hold their annual meeting for free or cheap, invite them to use your space, because that's a great way to bring them in, and they bring all their outside membership into your community. It gives them a chance to see you and hold their meetings there. You're invited to the meeting. You get to hear what's going on. And they have they call them park rules, but we like to say community rules. And they have all the state statutes in a big booklet, and that helps us a lot when we're making our community rules as well. And your local cities get together with your city halls. Even if you don't like them, you should always like them. When you need a big, gigantic permit or permits to do infrastructure, we were fortunate enough that they actually waived some of the fees when we did our infrastructure, because we're so connected with the city. It's very important to do that. City police, fire, and your mayor or council members go to their meetings, learn what's going on in your city, and start reaching out to your city as well. Be a part of the city, because then you can connect with businesses that will in turn help you with small grants, because there's a lot of businesses that will do $500 grants for stuff that you might need. And if you partnered up with 10 of those, that's a lot of money. And maybe you could get a fence put in or post office boxes, whatever the case may be. There is so much stuff out there in all the different states that people don't even realize is available. And I can't remember who it was at one of the leadership programs, but Minnesota has a seniors advocate association that I never even heard of, and they help you with senior citizens getting into housing for less expensive ways and connecting them to Meals on Wheels. I don't know if states have that, where they bring in food to people with disabilities and seniors, and it's either free or cheap depending upon their income. So they're 3 meals a day for 5 days a week. It's worth doing if you have that available. Oh my goodness, the list is so huge. We're always looking for more and staying connected, because you never know when you might be that person who may need that, because I was there when I had my brain surgery. I needed help with everything. American Legion, Lions Club, VFWs. We're working with the Lions Club right now to look for infill for veterans. Minnesota has a veterans program as well, but that didn't work out for us, so we're now connecting with those 3 entities. So we're hoping for some donated homes for infill to put veterans into our community and get them on the board of directors, because they love to be volunteers. And goodness sakes, I could think of a million things. And your government. Stay connected to your government.
Great, Natividad, thank you. And to draw a connection, so you hear Natividad very passionate about community improvements. She's been at the legislature advocating for infrastructure resources for co-ops. You hear Lori's passion for home improvements resources. So just to make the connection, in our last strategic planning process, which some of you participated, how many 2014 Cincinnati participants do we have here? I know Sandy, you were there. So our Community Leadership Institute in Cincinnati was the foundation for our last strategic plan. Out of that came a priority on home and community improvements resources. And out of that came one of the outputs, the home and community improvement guides that you see back at the dorm, laid out on the table by the elevator, which is resources available in your states for both home and community improvements. And to take that one step further, there are, on the previous MyROC USA, and will appear on the new MyROC USA as well, discussion groups around those types of resources. So as people work with those guides, learn new things about the programs in those guides, there's an opportunity for you to update that and share information with your peers in your states around what you're learning. And it all ties out to advocacy. There was a USDA home improvement program that did not allow grants and loans from manufactured homes in manufactured home communities, that as a result of that research, as a result of that strategic priority, we got USDA at a national level to approve home improvement loans in your communities, and 2 women out in Oregon who got their homes improved as a result, a direct result. It actually works, it actually works. Participating, raising up voice, and driving for change actually works. So with that, actually I'm going to move, we're going to go, because I want to get to our Q&A piece. I'm going to move to a subject that Kim Capon has been very passionate about at the board level and actually at the community level as well, and it has to do with this subject that Gary teed up the language that we all use. Language matters. How we talk about ourselves, how we think about the world actually matters in terms of driving change. So Kim, can you talk about first at the community level what Medville Cooperative has done relative to language and how you project yourselves into the world?
Yes. One of the things that we all have a responsibility to is how our communities are looked at from the outside and how people view us. I think last night really hit home with me listening to Michael Schloss from ROC Capital talk about how passionate he is about the work that he's doing in helping communities like us sort of determine their own destiny. And then he's out there looking for money, as cheap money as possible, so that your purchases are at as low an interest as possible, and which gives us leaves us with a great opportunity to be supportive of that. And how the outside world looks at us is as important as how we look at ourselves. Gary talked a little bit about the use of this word trailer. One of the things that we did in our community was shortly after I got there, I was taking a harder look at, as I became a board member, took a harder look at the rules and the bylaws and the policies, and as I'm reading through it, I'm looking at language that that I didn't like. I didn't look at our community as a park. My idea of a park is where I take my grandkids to play on the hobby horses or whatever. I didn't. So one of the things that we did with the language, with everywhere the word park existed, was changed to community. We want to build up ourselves as a community. Everywhere the word, we didn't have the word trailer, I don't think, in any of our language, but I was convinced that our mobile homes were definitely not mobile. So I thought that was another misnomer, that people mistake the fact that these have a shelf life. They have a life. The life is in most of our homes is no different than a stick-built home. So we took the word mobile out of everywhere and either used the word manufactured or home were most appropriate. And I think that what that does is it sort of just sets the stage for how we look at ourselves as well. A couple of phrases come to mind. I thought about this morning, and I mentioned to the gals here that sit up on the stage with me, is that a man's home is his castle, to which I got the evil eye from the two ladies here. A person's home is their castle. And the other one is, be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. And I think those are very appropriate phrases. They're very old, and if I would have tried to impress you by looking up who said those first or who has claimed to have said them first, but I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to impress upon you the fact that the language that we use sort of tells our story, tells a little bit about us and about our homes, and that we need to clean up our language, if you will, in that respect. I came up with I just came up with this. It's corny, but when you hear that word, that T word, no T's. No T's. Don't use that word. And if you hear somebody say that. Do something that says, we're better than that. These are our homes. This is our shelter. This is, for most of us, it's our greatest investment. So let's take some pride in that. So that's my That's my take on what we can do to improve how the outside world looks at us and how we look at ourselves.
That's great. Because at the root of that is prejudice and stereotype. And how many people in the room, tell me this, how many people in the room, if we could imagine a way, as a group, how many people would be interested in really trying to change that stereotype, how to change the stigma of owning a manufactured home in a manufactured home community? How many people would be willing to participate in some manner in that, reversing that stigma? I don't know how we're going to do this. This has hung over this effort for the last 35 years. People looking down on these communities, your homes, as something less than a home. And I'll tell you, Lori Weisendorf's comment, it's not the first time I've heard that I wanted to hold an open house and someone said to me, why are you holding an open house, right? You notice the language we use is homeowners. That is what, in fact, all of you are. And when you start to think about home ownership, you think about security. And, of course, it makes sense. You want security of the land under your homes. But that's not the way a lot of people in our country think about our homes here. So I don't know how we're going to do this, but somewhere in the next 60 days, we are going to find a way to do something significant to shift this dialogue. And I would love for all of us in this room to be a part of that shift. So watch for news. I think the ROC Leadership Institute graduates are exactly the place to start with this, and let's see what we can do to move the meter in the next 60 days. I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll figure it out. So thank you all very much. Let's go to Q&A, and I have Gary Fosher, and because you two are the first to raise your hands, Gary, could you start here in the middle, and let's just get whatever questions. Yeah, we have a microphone roaming here.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Kim. How many units are in your community, please?
We have 301.
Wow. Thank you.
Great. Be prepared with your questions.
Thank you. Kim, my question's for you also. I'm Nancy Morrison from Conifer Green in Kingston. What? Massachusetts. My question was, your coffee house that you have before, is that in addition to your open forum after your board of directors meeting?
Yes, at our board of directors meeting, we have it's a board of directors meeting, not a membership meeting, but we do have a 15-minute segment prior to the board meeting. For the first 15 minutes of our board meeting is members and their comments, and then the closing of the board meeting is another 5 minutes before we go into executive session if we have it. And then, but the coffee house is sort of, it's a more casual, relaxed atmosphere. It's very open, so there's, whatever we're discussing, all the members in the community can weigh in on it. So board meetings can last forever if you have member participation along with the board. So we're pretty strict about that rule of this is a board meeting, but your meeting is the Saturday before, and you can talk about anything, including what's on the board's agenda.
Thank you.
Piggyback question. Did you see any difference in either attendance or issues in the open forums once those coffee hours began ahead of board meetings?
Yes, there's actually, our meetings start within a couple of minutes after the meeting is supposed to start because most of what people had on their mind is discussed at Coffee House. So that has helped in that respect, yes.
We're back. Yep, go ahead, Gary.
Yes. Don't you end up running into a lot of problems with that? I mean, it's like whatever you're talking about that's going to be at the meeting, the situation like, cutting grass or something. You get a bunch of people talking about what are you going to do about cutting the grass and all that kind of stuff. When you're going to talk about that at the meeting and then you're going to repeat that, the situation, it's like you're having the meeting before the meeting.
Not Not really. I mean, what it does is it probably does shortcut a lot of the conversation, which is not a problem, because we have most of the board members there. It's not a mandatory for board members, but most are there. But what it does do is it promotes transparency. You know, there's nothing to hide. We can talk about everything and anything, and basically, we're saying to the members, this is what we're having for discussion. We're talking about doing this or that, whatever the case may be, and then they have an opportunity to say, well, I think this, it gives us an opportunity to get input from them on the spot, where before you'd have people on the edge of their seats at a board meeting wanting to say something, and we wouldn't let them, because we're in the middle of a conversation and it's our meeting. And we don't want a 4-hour meeting. So I think it circumvents that from happening. And so they have an opportunity to weigh in when they want to. But even more importantly is it dispelled in the beginning a lot of rumors where people felt comfortable they could, no matter what they asked, they got an answer. There was nothing skirted. We weren't hiding anything, and it's very open and honest conversations.
Where are you finding the grants to help the residents repair their older homes?
Well, the grant that we're talking about establishing and that we want to talk about how we want to do would be from donations from each community, not each member, but each community. Let's say you have a meeting with your community and you say, this is a grant program that's being considered, and would we be willing to perhaps commit to $25 a month or $50 a month or whatever you're comfortable with? Or can we not do this? But that is where the monies would come from.
I wanted to ask actually 2 questions. First one is, in doing meetings on these Saturday mornings that like you're doing, how is it conducted, and what do you do to keep it from becoming heated discussions or, challenges back and forth between neighbors? How do you manage that so that the questions can be answered honestly? Have you ever had those problems? We're having some challenges with that.
Yeah, we really aren't challenged that much in that respect. I think it's getting to a point where members are comfortable in expressing their opinions about everything and anything. And we have a thing where everybody's opinion is important. And I think it's important for the board members in particular to be on the same page. And I think it's important that they're honest about answering questions. And everybody who's, you can't have an argument by yourself. Okay, so if you're willing to be straightforward with questions, not raise your voice, be earnest, be honest, people can see that, and they're less confrontational if you're not confrontational. So I think what happens is when somebody gets defensive about something that's thrown at them as a question, then it opens the door for confrontation. And I think that's one of those things where, we have to be better than that as board members. We have to be humble enough to say, I respect your thoughts, I respect your opinion. I don't particularly see it that way, and this is why I don't. And I think that as time goes on, that tension goes away because you haven't left the door open for it, and you haven't created an environment for it. So it is a technique, I would say, but it was a great question because I don't experience it very often because I'm just very open and honest about what I have to say, and I don't have to be defensive about anything. I'm there to be transparent, you know, and if you've got a better idea, I want to hear it. I don't have the best ideas in the world. I may have mostly the worst. That's why I have a board of eight people to back me up or to support me, because it's their ideas, it's their community, and it's also the members' community. So I think we have to remember that, and we talked about this a little bit last night about creating an environment where all the members understand that they are owners. So give them an opportunity to be an owner, I guess is my message.
Gary, I think the workshop on emotional intelligence is also right at Sally's question. Could you repeat the title of the workshop on EI?
The emotional intelligence one?
Yes, that one.
It's keep cool, get results, emotional intelligence, and conflict resolution.
Yeah, keep cool and get results. Very, very important. It's fundamental. We offer that every year at the Leadership Institute. It's a good one. So one last question, and then I'm going to have the panelists tie things up.
I always like being last.
Introduce yourself too, Sandy. I'm sorry.
I'm Sandy Snow from Barrington Oaks in Barrington, New Hampshire. And the events that he talked about, putting it into the budget once a month, and the fundraising part of that, and also the volunteerism, it's almost like they go hand in hand. Do these coffee house things you have once a month before your meeting, do they promote that volunteerism? And how did you, I'm sorry, it's a two-part question. How did you get the events into your budget? Did you have to have the membership vote on it? Did the board just put it together?
No, well, every year the Finance Committee, along with the Board of Directors, puts forth a budget for the entire community. So it's a budget line item, and all of the membership has to vote on that. It obviously has to fit within your budget. So it was our way initially of getting the events committee off and running, and they needed a fair amount more money than in the beginning than in the end. But it's a budget line item. The members vote and agree on it, and so. Again, it's just another way of being intentional about creating an atmosphere of volunteerism. And you mentioned that they sort of go hand in hand. The social atmosphere and the volunteering, or the atmosphere for volunteerism, go hand in hand. And so we promote a lot of social things because that gets people together, and then they're convinced that they need to be a part of the community in terms of helping out. So
that's great. Thank you, Kim. So now, TV Dodd, you were jonesing to say something. So if you could make your point really quickly, and then I have a final question for each of you.
It's not even a question. It's just I forgot to mention something really important. Is last year, Co-op Minnesota, which is an organization that got together to be able to sort of have a coffee house, but we meet at breweries and stores and wherever is available because they're looking for free space as well. And they get together and they have a speaker and just spend some time talking about co-op things because Minnesota is a huge co-op situation out there. Milk, eggs, bikes, you name it. We have a co-op for everything. So this past year, they decided to actually charge for membership, and Park Plaza became a member. It's $25, and we're trying to encourage everyone out there in Minnesota who is a co-op to become a member so that we can have a bigger voice together and figure out ways to help each other in any type of situation, be it events, lobbying, whatever type of thing, because they do a lot of lobbying as well. So if you happen to have that in your state where you have a lot of co-ops, I would suggest finding out who is a big leader and maybe start a program like that so that you can get involved, because that's a way to get out into the community and be seen, because a lot of co-ops do not know who we are. They're just learning in Minnesota in the past couple of years because we're on TV all the time. And another way to change the stigmatism is we have been on TV a lot since August with our storm shelter. So I asked Ryan Ritchie, who wrote all the stories, to please stop saying mobile home park. Let's change that language. And the brand new person who is running for Anoka County Commissioner came on a tour, and she kept saying mobile home park. And I said, do you know what a mobile home park is for real? I said, let's change it to manufactured homes. And so she said, I never even thought of that. You guys really aren't mobile. So it's just helping. Reach out. Anybody, if you're on TV, if you're on radio, ask them to change the language for their next story and maybe do a story.
Great. So thank you, Natividad. So in the 3 minutes we have left, if each of you could just, later this evening, as Gary noted, you're all going to meet Julie Anna Eads from the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund and Andrea Levere from Prosperity Now, both directors on the ROC USA board. Andrea is our board chair. But a question you often get, I'd love you to just quickly, so what's attending a ROC USA board meeting like? Any quick reactions? And I do mean quick, so we're going to be on time. But what's attending a ROC USA board meeting like?
Intimidating.
Intimidating. Oh, good.
Took the words out of my mouth.
You have to dress up.
Yeah, it is. Initially, you know, it's the little fish in a big pond, I guess. But for me, you know, first of all, we don't even know each other. I mean, I didn't know these two, and I didn't know anyone other than Paul and I think I knew Julie. But so it's these are very influential people in their respective communities and in work environment. So it is a bit intimidating, but I can tell you that the great thing is that, you know, I think, and Lori mentioned it earlier, that, you know, they're very down to earth. They're passionate about what they're doing, which means they're passionate about our success, and so that comes through loud and clear. And so it's really, it doesn't take long to get comfortable with that part of it. So it takes a little longer to get used to the idea that you are a part of a much bigger machine. But that's my take on it.
So again, I'm the baby in the family. But my experience and sitting in with the board is exciting and fabulous. I really believe in ROC USA and all its members, that they are there and they are all in to helping us. And that's exciting. There's some very influential people, like you said, and they are there looking to help us. You know, how much greater can it be? They're very welcoming. They're very welcoming. Like I said, I've never felt uncomfortable in a meeting. I've been nervous, sure, because we have to speak in those meetings and things. And, you know, they want to hear our voice. You know, they don't live in communities like we do, and so they need our voice to help them realize, you know, what our needs are and what it's like out there for us and what their investments, you know, are doing. And I've always had fun. They've always been supportive, and I find them very exciting. And we travel to Washington, D.C. to meet with them, and that's exciting as well. So.
Thank you, Lori. Natividad, quickly.
My first time was very scary, very intimidating, and after that, it was a piece of cake. Their arms are always open, their ears are always open, and their eyes are always looking for new things. And you have to remember that one of the things that's important is you are their eyes and ears on the ground level of what is so huge and important to many people losing their homes right now. Affordable housing is the key factor that every state is looking at so that you're not homeless. So always remember that they are here to look out for you and everyone coming in the future. So there's nothing more important than being part of ROC USA and them being a part of us. And just remember that scary only happens once. After that, it's easy.
There you go. Scary only happens once. So please join me in thanking these three for dedicating so much of their time and effort for all those flights, for all those meetings. There's a lot that goes into it. It's meaningful to the whole movement. So thank you all very much, and please join me in thanking the ROC Association directors. It is 9:46. We're 1 minute over, so we are going to move to workshops in the academic building next door, and let us know if you have any needs. Thank you.
Thank you all, and let's pack up and head over to the academic building. Our first sessions will start in 15 minutes, and we want to clear the room so our wonderful conference staff can clean up for us.